Ever see us start. Um, so think about someone that we all know, like Thomas Edison, right? You've probably heard how he failed over 1,000 times before he successfully invented the light bulb, right? And how many times in our life do we try something and it doesn't seem to work and we give up completely? And think about that. Thomas Edison gave light to the world that has changed everything about the way that we live our life. And if he had allowed his own, self to get into this stinking thinking, he would have not ever invented that. And it would have been someone else that would have invented that, or maybe it wouldn't have ever been invented. And you don't realize how the gift or the idea that you have to give to the world really makes a difference. And gonna mute everything. And so, I love the quote that he uses when he said, I have not failed. I have simply found 10,000 ways that don't work. Right. And we can look back at that and we could say, well, you know what? I had a rough morning with the kids and, there was, I haven't failed. I did that 10,000 times wrong, And it's that same concept that I shared with you of like, there are no bad days. There's something good in every day. Some days might be better than others, right? Because we do have days that we could quantify as being a bad day. But if we just chose to look, it's the glass is half empty or the glass is half full. And so I'm grateful for someone like Thomas Edison who said, like, yeah, I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And so maybe there's a place where you feel stuck or stumped in your life or in your business, and you just need to find more ways that don't work. And then you're going to find the way that does work over time. And the growth that you're going to experience in the process is that greatest opportunity. So I believe that resilience and perseverance are foundational for anyone that's going to create success in their life. And so I want to be able to cultivate an unshakable mindset where that's the way that I choose to look at challenges. And, I speak life over these things. Don't think that I don't struggle with them too. It was funny last night when I was putting together the um, kind of the about section of that group, and I started thinking, like, I don't know who I am to even lead these calls. You know what I mean? It's not that I'm an expert by any means, but I have an attitude and a mindset that I want to grow and I want to continue to improve. And I know that you guys are here because you're with me in that. And I love that we get to be on this journey together. So, hopefully we're going to develop some ideas and some ways of thinking about challenges that maybe are a little bit different than you've looked at before. I love it. Shauna says Jack Canfield with Chicken Soup for the Soul was rejected 144 times. There you go, right? And how popular are those books and how much, do people appreciate those stories that have been that have been told. And so he knew that he had a gift for the world, but he didn't want to keep it to himself. So hopefully we're going to come up with some practical strategies to help us learn to look at obstacles and choose to be resilient to overcome those things that are holding us back, those setbacks, those road bumps and speed bumps that we come across, and to stay committed to the vision, right? We've talked a little bit about building your vision for your future and really seeing that as if it's happened, choosing to speak into the positive and speak into the present tense of saying, I am so grateful and thankful that I am so, I'm so, I'm in the process of becoming, and have that attitude of like, okay, we are going to be overcomers. We are going to get to that vision that we see. God didn't give it to us for no reason. We just have to get really clear on the vision. So we have to be able to recover when we face difficult things. That's resilience. And truly, I think that that does come with practice. And it sucks because, there's a lot of difficult things that we face. And like I said, when I shared with you guys about losing my mom, like there's so many people I know that have gone through loss and it allows them to shut down. And it's understandable that that happens, but is that really serving them? and it's hard. I have a good friend of mine who lost a child. And when I think about how, that's like one of the hardest things I can ever imagine anyone going through. And it's easy for all of us as moms to empathize and say, like, that could completely shut me down, if you lost a child. But I also am able to look at it and I see that as much as I can understand that, I don't know how much that is serving her and her family. It's a process that she's had to go through, but I see the impact that that's had on her other children. I see the impact that that's had on her outlook in life, right? And you see people that fall into this stage of depression and then you kind of get lost in that spiral. And so again, as much as it's understandable that people go down that path and they get to that place, um, building a resilient mindset before we face challenges is going to allow us to handle even the worst possible things that could happen to us in life. Because building resilience is the ability to recover from the difficulties, from the challenges, the ability to adapt in difficult circumstances. And so, oh, Darlene, I'm so sorry. It's that I can only imagine how difficult that is, And it's true, we have to lean on strength that we don't have. And I'm grateful to hear you say that, you've been able to, that God's carried you through, right? That footprints in the sand. I think that's such a visual depiction of truly like we get to these moments where we have to come to the end of ourselves and we have to lean on strength that's not our own. And that is going to allow us to be resilient because we don't have to carry the burden by ourselves at that point either. And so I know that so many of us have experienced loss. And so I hope it doesn't come across in any way like I minimize that. I know what that is like. And I speak from that place of experience of knowing that when I lost my mom, I started to lose myself. I started to go to a place where it wasn't serving me. I could just be sad all day long. I lost my spark of joy for life, and it felt almost like I almost felt like I guilty, I guess, for experiencing joy, right? But I look back and my kids, like they lost some joy in their life because I chose to allow myself to spiral out in that negative place. And so these are again are like hopefully going to give us practical tools that we can just catch ourselves in the moment and say, is it serving me? Yes, absolutely. Feel your feelings. It's okay to have a minute. But hopefully we develop a community of people that are there, that rally for us, that lift us up when we're going through difficult things, that we can think of the fact that I know that God still has a plan and a hope and a future for me, despite the worst things possible that could happen in my life. So, um, again, when we think about so many people that when you look at people maybe in business that you admire, if you listen to their story, you're going to hear that they hit obstacles, that they hit a brick wall at some point in time. Nothing happens overnight and nothing happens without a lot of effort. But they've developed resilience in the process. Again, Elon Musk and all the things that he failed at with Tesla, with everything that he has built and created. He had companies that nearly went bankrupt, but he continued to persist on. And now he's really truly revolutionized the automotive space industry, life in general. He's transforming things, in the government, and who knows where all he's going to go with his life. But if he had chosen to let it stop him when he hit those first obstacles, when his company went bankrupt, if he had chosen to give up, where would we be technology wise now? And so we have to reframe our failure as feedback. And when we choose to label things and to speak about them differently than they are, when we choose to look for the lessons in the difficult things, it gives us a sense of appreciation for what it is that we've gone through, instead of resentment. And resentment and It's crazy, actually. I don't know if you guys have ever studied unforgiveness. It's something that I didn't ever understand until a few years ago, actually. Um, it's a part of my kind of faith transformation that I'll share with you guys. And so, um, I was baptized on December 20th of 2020, and I remember when I sat down with some friends who were just talking to me about the concept of repenting. Um, it they said like, do you have unforgiveness that you need to repent for? And it just was a totally mind-blowing concept for me because I was like, no, like I I don't need to repent for that. Like I have hard feelings towards someone because they caused it, right? And we like project it on the situation or the person or whatever else. And it was like understanding that that was actually something that I was choosing. I was choosing to harbor unforgiveness. And then when you start, if you ever study what unforgiveness does to your body, some of you guys probably have heard of Louise Hay, and she wrote this book called How to Heal Your Life. And she breaks down how like every illness in our body is tied to something else. But unforgiveness is actually the root of like major sickness and disease that can happen in our bodies. And we don't realize that we're choosing to hold on to something that doesn't serve us, right? We can be hurt. We can have gone through difficult things. That person doesn't necessarily deserve our forgiveness, but it's not about them, it's about us. Because when we choose to hold on to that, it's like, we're holding on to a bomb that's ready to explode in our hands. It's not even affecting them anymore. And so unforgiveness is something that I have just learned to really analyze in my life, where I've chosen to be bitter and I've chosen to go through difficult things. And anyhow, that's an aside of my own perspective on it. But yeah, I see you sharing that too, Suze. Like it's amazing when you let go of that, you realize how much it was like, these roots that get in deep and like grip around your heart, grip around your thinking, and just prevent you from having freedom in your life. And so, unforgiveness, that's just something that I think we all can choose to look back at the failure, look at the difficult thing that happened to us and acknowledge it and say, all right, but that has helped me to be a better person. It's helped me to understand how I don't want to treat people. It's helped me to understand other people that have gone through difficult things like that. And once we have breakthrough, we can help someone else walk through that breakthrough too. And because I had never understood how it was my own choosing that terrible situation or whatever it was that had happened in my past, I was still choosing to let it affect me. And so it is huge when you can let that weight go. And so I encourage you guys to think about if there might be an area in your life or someone who's hurt you at some point in time. And if to some degree you still could like curl a lip and like, ugh, when you think about it, it's probably holding you back in different areas of your life. And so, what can you learn from that circumstance? How can it make you a better person? Because if it makes you a better person, you can be grateful for it instead of resenting it. And so we can embrace this discomfort, these difficult things that we go through, the challenges that we face, the hurt that we've gone through, and we can choose whether we want to carry that with us or whether we want to let it go. And just like Susie was saying, like it's a weight off your shoulders. It's this burden that we choose to pick up and carry with us every day when we can let it go. And when we start to develop this long-term perspective for our life of saying, okay, well, in this moment, in my hurt, I want to choose to hold on to this, but how is this serving me in the long term? How is this helping me manage life better? Is that going to take some of my positive energy away from the people in my life that deserve it? You've got little kids who have nothing, they're not related to that situation that you went through, but yet somehow they're reaping the repercussions of it because of how you're choosing to let it affect yourself. So, um, what's what is something, if there's something for you, I want you guys to feel like this is a comfortable space. And, it's one of those things that whatever is shared in this group, I hope we can all look at it from the perspective of like it's in one ear and out the other, right? This is a place where you can process your feelings and not feel afraid of judgment. But sometimes we need to speak it out to be able to let go of it. And so I just encourage you to do that if you feel comfortable to, that if there's something that you have a light bulb moment of saying, you know what, actually, when I think about people that I'm bitter with, this person comes to mind. And I've never really stopped and allowed myself to feel the feelings and let it go. And I'm going to choose to do that. Um, I hope that maybe that can give you some breakthrough in an area if that's something that's been affecting you. But what's a past setback that you've been through in life that has helped you learn how to handle situations better, right? You can think back to different jobs that you've had, different bosses that you've had, and you watched how they treated someone else, and you determined that you never wanted to be treated like that, or you determined that you would never treat somebody else like that. And so we can look at these things and have um, that growth that comes from it. It doesn't have to be a setback. We can rewrite it as a stepping stone to success. And there are so many things that we're going to face in life that are going to challenge us, but we are going to choose to be overcomers. And so this is where I think that perseverance really comes into play because we can choose to give up halfway. You know, we can think that we're resilient enough to deal with it to a certain point, but we come to the end of ourselves where we have to let things go and we have to choose to move forward. And it's funny, I was listening to, I don't know if any of you guys follow Christine Kane, but I was listening to this reel from one of her moments of speaking, and she was talking about the story of Lot in the Bible and Lot's wife and how she chooses to look back at her life and she turns into a pillar of salt, if you've never heard this story before. And the way that she explained it was like she became calcified because she was looking back at the past. And because she became calcified where she can't move forward, right? She didn't have life after that. And how many times do we allow ourselves to get stuck where we're looking back at something that's happened in our life and it's keeping us from growing. It's keeping us from moving forward and stepping into the life that we're supposed to have, where the other person probably isn't thinking about us anymore. You know, the challenge that we faced, it's over for them, but for us, you know, we have to choose to persevere. And that's why having that vision that pulls us forward, even though there's difficult things that could keep us looking back, we have to make that choice. And so perseverance is being determined to keep going forward, even when things get difficult, right? Yeah, none of us would want that. We wouldn't say, yes, I am okay with being bitter, and I'm going to be okay if my life halts where it is right now, right? And if I never achieve the success that I want, because I would rather be bitter about that thing in the past. On a logical level, none of us would say that, but yet subliminally, sometimes we just allow ourselves to stay in that place. So I love, you know, when we talk about perseverance, and again, I pull so many lessons from things that are in the Bible or from different personal development speakers or whatnot. And I love that there's a verse in the Bible that talks about perseverance, and it's James 1:12. And it said, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood that test, that person will receive a crown of life. And again, we can all say, yeah, I want a crown of life. Like I want my life to be in a better place at the end. Um, and so you will be blessed if you choose to persevere and continue to move forward through the challenges. You know, we talked about J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, and she was rejected by 12 publishers. Jack Canfield rejected 144 times, you know, and now what was it that someone said in the chat, how many books there are now? What was it, like 250 books, I think? Something like that. I'm trying to find it now. Anyways, but like went on to write how many different books. Oh, Tony, I'm so sorry to hear about what you've been through. Absolutely. I was betrayed by a good friend in ways I could never imagine. Right? We go through these things, and it prevented you from allowing yourself to have close friends. I don't let anyone below the surface out of fear of another betrayal. Right? And yet, on the other hand, you're also holding yourself back from the people that could be making a huge impact on you, or people that you could be making a huge impact on by letting them be close to you in your life. And she also shared that her sister took her life. My mom isn't the same person anymore. And I feel like I lost them both that day sometimes. Absolutely. I relate to the book of Job. We go through these challenges where we really have to wrestle with God. Yeah, Shauna, sorry, I just saw that you have your hand raised. If you had something you want to share, unmute.
Yeah, I can I share something? Oops. Let's see. Here we go. So if that Jack Canfield thing was 275 books, like Chicken Soup for the
Yeah.
this soul, that soul, whatever. Excuse me. But there's this person, her name is Byron Katie, and
Mhm.
she has this I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she has this like technique called the work, the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's so helpful when whatever the thing is, then you ask yourself, like, is it true? So like this thing happened, is it true? And then sometimes it's like you think, oh, this terrible thing happened, or this shouldn't have happened. And is it true? And you say yes. Well, yeah, it's true. And then the next question is like, is it really true? And the answer still might be yes. And then you can say to yourself, well, how do I know that this was supposed to happen? Because it happened. Like it happened because it happened. But who would I be if I could? Who would I be, and how could I live my life if I could let go of the feelings that I hold on to because of that thing?
Mhm.
So, not like you're saying, oh, that was great that that happened, but it did happen. But how could my life be, or who could I be if I can let go of the feelings of, say, someone betrayed me? But
Mhm.
if I could just let go of that hurt feeling or whatever, then like, how could I live my life? And you can that's a helpful way to just kind of take the next step and move out of having those things holding you back from your life. But
Yeah.
I think that's like such a good, it's like a pause to be able to like kind of ask yourself those questions,
Yeah.
and then just try to take the next step and in your life to see what else you could be or how you can live your life.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's again like taking the thought captive and saying like, is this really even true? Like,
Right.
why am I choosing to perceive it in this way? And Brené Brown, I love it when she talks about that too, right? Is like, what's the story you're telling yourself in your head? Is it actually true? Is that the reality of what you're dealing with? Or is that you've chosen to think like, when we misread someone's intentions and we think that they intentionally did something to hurt us, and maybe it's just they had a million other things going on in their life and they forgot or whatever, right? But like we choose to have a certain perception of the way that something happened that could be completely skewed and off base. And then we allow ourselves to go down this path and to get bitter and to harbor resentment and all of these things that really are only affecting us when that was never true to begin with. So I love that.
Right?
Uh,
Like what's the story that you're telling yourself
yeah,
about? And even when the thing is true, like an actual true thing might have happened,
yeah,
but then you can say, well, it happened. How do we know it was supposed to happen? Because it happened. Like
yeah,
until we can get a time machine and go back and change time, which we can't do yet that we know of. Um, like it did happen.
yeah.
So now we just must
Well,
go
when you
forward
have
some.
that faith that like nothing is a mistake, then you start to appreciate those little things, even if they are true, even
Right.
if they were difficult. And so that's the kind of person that I want to be. I want to have these strategies to help build perseverance. I want to analyze things and say, is it true? You know? And I want to know that I'm going to push through and I'm going to overcome and I'm going to get to the other side and I'm going to persevere until I get where I want to be. And so having that clear goal and vision is really important. And then not only having the clear goal in front of you, it's like I said, whatever it is, that ultimate goal that's at the top of the staircase doesn't mean that you're just going to leap over all the steps to get there. you have to look at what's in front of you, break it down into those small, consistent actions that you can take to grow yourself and to step towards that big success that you want to have. And in the process, you also need to surround yourself with people who are going to encourage you, people who are going to cheer you on, who are going to help you have a better perspective on life. And so, if we were going to look and say, what can we do right now, today, to game plan and map out what your big goal is? If you were to look to the top of the staircase today, what's that big thing that you can't stop thinking about? That big, hairy, audacious goal, that big dream that continues to pull you forward, that you can see if you allow yourself to stop and like think about what it is and allow your vision to get really clear on what that looks like. And if you were to speak it in the present tense, I'm so grateful and thankful now that I do have, be, you know, went, what is the thing that is the goal for you? So write it down and write down the steps that it's going to take to get there so that you can celebrate those smaller milestones along the journey. Because sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to celebrate and appreciate if we didn't get to the top of the staircase, but we really have made all these little breakthroughs every step along the way. So we're going to go through difficult things. It's one of my favorite, if you guys have ever listened to GoPro with Eric Worre, I really love how he talks about going with his mentor to a one-on-one meeting with someone new in his business. And the mentor said, okay, so when you want to quit, how do you want me to handle you? Do you want me to get in your face and remind you of why you decided to do this? Do you want me to give you a minute? Whatever. And I thought it's such a valid question because we're all going to have those days. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it's easy in business. It's like Facebook and the highlight reel is that sometimes you can look at other people and you feel like they kind of glamorize the business, right? It doesn't matter what business we're in. Building any business is going to take work. There's going to be obstacles. We're going to face challenges. And so how are we going to move forward from that? So we know that there is something to be learned through every situation. And when we tell people there's going to be challenges and that they're actually going to grow into a bigger and better person in the process, guess what? Growth doesn't happen without growing pains. And I think we do people a disservice when we're like, it's so simple. You can do this and see these paychecks that you can earn, see this place that you can get to, and we don't talk about the fact that it's actually going to build some grit in you. It's going to be a little bit grueling and you got to work through some challenges, right?
I
No
always
worries.
tell my team, I always say when I do like any type of strategy call, I always say it is not sunshine and rainbows. It is
Yeah.
really hard work. You're going to cry. You're going to have happy tears. You're going to have sad tears. You're going to get really frustrated and you're probably going to want to quit. So I have to know why you're doing this so I
Yeah.
can bounce it back off of you and say, hey, you did this because blah, blah, blah. The reason you told me you wanted to do this was because whatever. Like I have to know because I have to kind of dig deep sometimes. Like my enroller had to do that with me, like, hey, I know this person like really, was kind of rude and like you had a cancellation or whatever the heck happened. But like it's okay. This is
Yeah.
why you wanted to do this, and this is how far you've come. So I always say that stuff.
Right? It's true. And we owe it to people to tell them that. And, we're really helping them to be set up for success when we tell them that that's going to happen. So we have to have faith. We have to see the vision. We have to believe that we're going to get there. We're going to faith it until we become it. And we're going to learn to be resilient. We're going to trust God when things get difficult. When we come to the end of ourselves, that's where he begins, And so for me, that's also really important. And if you're in a place where that doesn't have a role in your life, I can understand how it becomes a little bit overwhelming when you look at challenges too. So I know that if I can trust that God has a plan for me, even when it doesn't look like things are going my way, that's going to help me get through. I believe that all things work together for good, So even though it's going to suck for a minute, it's going to be a challenge. I know that there's a purpose in it. So when we know that there is a bigger plan for us, and we can keep working towards that vision. In the process, we also need to speak truth over our lives. We need to speak hope over our lives. We need to surround ourselves with people who are going to speak life over us, who have also been through difficult things and know that it's possible to get to the other side. And we have to give up control, because I think a big obstacle for a lot of us is that we want to be in control, right? We never let go. And it's that same concept of like when we're clutching on to something so tightly, our hands aren't free to catch our new blessings. We speak it out and we're like, I want that, I want to get to the next level. I want that blessing. But yet really we're holding on to things that aren't serving us, and it's not going to allow us to embrace what we're meant to experience. So we have to give that up. And we know that we are made to be, I am more than a conqueror. I know that I am capable. I know that I have purpose. Speak that out loud to yourself. Speak that out loud into the chat. Putting, the tongue has the power of life and death. So speak life over yourself and have that resilient business mindset, leadership mindset. You know, as a mom, if the first time our kids talked back to us, we were like, well, clearly I'm not meant to be a mom. I'm a terrible mom. I'm never gonna, you know what I mean? And we just gave up on our kids. Like, imagine, it's laughable. None of us would ever do that, but yet we allow ourselves to do that oftentimes in our business, or as we look at ourselves and our leadership potential. We are going to face setbacks. We are going to screw up. We often expect to be able to step out and to be this like amazing leader, or to not even make mistakes, and we don't realize that we've got this completely unrealistic expectation of ourselves. And then we get frustrated and we start to give up. But every entrepreneur out there, every successful person can tell you countless stories of the setbacks that they faced and how they chose to be resilient in the face of the setback and how they've moved forward. So if we expect the challenges and we're looking at them, they're not going to take us by surprise. Oftentimes when things take us by surprise, they take us out. So look for the challenges and embrace them. Oh, this is a sign that I am in the right place, that I am headed in the right direction, as difficult as it is. So plan for the obstacles. Don't let them derail you, and stay adaptable. Be willing to try a new thing, have a new approach, think about it from a different perspective, because that's also key for people that have been successful, is they have this ability to pivot, that no matter the challenge that comes, they find another workaround. And for me, I guess the visual, when I started thinking about this concept, is like if you were an archer and you had like an arrow that you were trying to shoot at a target, right? It takes me back to like Robin Hood days in those movies you used to watch. And so like, you've got your target board that you need to hit, and you're going to pull back your arrow. Well, first of all, there's a stretching that's going to happen, right? When you pull that arrow back, you are pulling it and it is tight and it is stretching, but it's because you're about to launch that into something new. And so the same thing in our life, we go through these stretching moments, but guess what? What if somebody comes in between you and your goal and your target? You can't plan to shoot your arrow standing straight from where you are straight at your target if somebody puts a building in the way. But you can choose to move to the other side and to take a different angle. It doesn't mean that the goal needs to change when an obstacle gets in our way. We just have to choose a different path, a different target strategy, plan of attack, right? And so we have to stay adaptable and pivot to a different perspective that we might not have thought we needed to have in order to still reach our goals. And if we're committed to continue learning through every setback that we face, it's going to make us stronger in the process. So if you think about a challenge in your business, what is something that you're going to need to have a resilient strategy to overcome? When someone says no to you, what's your resilience strategy? When you have a team member who stops showing up for fast track or whatever that looks like, what's going to be your strategy? Who are you going to lean on? If you can't, make it the way that you expected to, are you going to give up or are you going to find a different way? We're find a way, make a way kind of people, right? If that's you, put in the chat. I'm a find a way, make a way kind of person because we have to choose to be that kind of person, that we're not going to let little things take us out. Resilience is going to allow us to bounce back from the difficult things that we face, and we are going to face the difficult things. Perseverance makes an obstacle a stepping stone, something that we move forward with. And faith is what gives us the strength, I think, to really deal with those challenges. So, what's a resilience building habit that you can start? And I will say, I think even just doing a mindset call like this, I know that me investing in my own personal development means that when I face a challenge, I'm going to think of a way to handle it faster because I've put my mind on those kind of things. So say to yourself, I am resilient. I persevere. I am walking boldly into my purpose. I see the vision for where I want to get to, and I'm not going to let anything derail me from that. Your story is still being written, and it's you are the one, oh my goodness. And you are the one that gets to decide what that's going to look like. So keep pushing forward. Keep writing the story that you would be proud to tell your children of how you overcome. So I would love to open it up if there's anybody that wants to share anything. Maybe it's an experience that you've been through in life. Maybe it's an aha moment that you're having. I so appreciate that you guys are all here this morning. I love hearing your thoughts and perspectives. I am a find a way, make a way kind of person. I am capable. I am successful. I am worthy. I never fight change. Oh, that's a good one, Lynn, right? Because it's our brain starts to go there. We're like, no, 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 I never fight change. I embrace it. I look for the good things. I am resilient. Yes. Love it. Using my voice, big stuff happening today. Yeah. Well, you are a find a way, make a way kind of person. You are resilient. No matter what obstacle comes your way today, you can overcome it and you have the strength to deal with whatever that challenge may be. All right. Anybody have anything they want to share this morning before we close it out? I hope that this was helpful for someone. I hope we can just remind ourselves of what we're capable of as we step forward into it. So, all right. Well, I will close us out then and make sure you choose. Pardon me? Yes, absolutely. I have two guests here this morning. My daughter and my son are both with us this morning. They snuck up and they're hanging out on my couch listening in. All right, Tyler wants to close us out this morning. All right.
Dear Jesus, I pray for all businesses to go well, and thank you for this day, and thank you for this warm weather so that we can play. And I pray that that we have a showing, and thank you for all the things you give us, all the food, all the water. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, buddy. We have so much to be grateful for, even just our food and our water, right? We take all the things that we take for granted. So I love that. All right. Well, I hope that you guys all have a beautiful and blessed day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for our Friday session. All right. Have a good day, guys.